It's hard to blame Caleb Williams for the Chicago Bears' loss to the Green Bay Packers beyond the final game-sealing interception. But it's a lot easier to go back through and see this Bears defense taking the wrong approach to Jordan Love and the Packers.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. And thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this football season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. On the show today, I want to go back through the Bears' loss to the Green Bay Packers, taking a closer look at Caleb Williams' performance, what went wrong on that final play of the game, and why the rest of the game was, at about the same as we've seen from Caleb Williams. Like, not certainly a worse game than we've seen in recent weeks, and plenty to still like from what we did see from Caleb, to where, yes, final play literally ends the game on his throw, but the majority of the game doesn't fall on his shoulders. He's certainly not the scapegoat to say, that's what went wrong against the Green Bay Packers. And by contrast, looking back over this Bears defensive performance, there's a lot to point at there beyond just, hey, they've got injuries or weaknesses or whatever, that just felt like the approach, the plan, the strategy to trying to slow down Jordan Love and the Packers offense didn't seem the most sound looking back in hindsight, and that side of the ball feels like it deserves more blame than it was getting, and then we gave it, certainly after having watched the game live. And we'll wrap up with another concern about whether or not the Bears are maybe approaching key injuries the wrong way, and kind of some concerning trends that go before even this Packers game that we definitely want to keep an eye on here moving forward. But let's start with the final play of the game and with Caleb Williams in particular, because this is the thing that has gotten the most discussion, that's been under the most scrutiny, and I think we should make sure that we're all on the same page with what that looks like and what happened on that play, because Ben Johnson has been pretty clear about it, and the All-22 film has been pretty clear about it, and it's something that doesn't have a ton of gray area at this point. There's very little in football that's truly objective, black and white, this is exactly the truth, and then anything else is wrong, but this comes as close to that as you can get in one play with as much transparency and insight as we've gotten from the Bears head coach. A couple things to note about this. Everyone noticed right away, similar play, but essentially the same play, but some small differences between what the Bears hit the late touchdown on against the Eagles to Cole Kmet in the end zone versus now the interception against the Packers to Cole Kmet in the end zone. And we talked on yesterday's podcast about how it was different formation, different personnel on the field. So it wasn't necessarily that pre-snap the whole Packers defense would know exactly what was happening on the play. Although I think there you could give some reasonable credit or suspicion to Keyshawn Nixon, who made the interception, maybe recognizing that, hey, in the red zone, watch for Cole Kmet to potentially try and sneak out back for that route. That idea I am a little more open to, but it's not as though this was some hugely predictable play that the whole Packers defense knew, because they had run something similarly the week before in a completely different formation with completely different personnel on the field in a different game situation. But beyond that, it's easy to kind of watch the replay and slow things down and look at the dots and say, oh, well, DJ Moore looked like he was coming open in that sort of intermediate area where past the first down marker may have had a touchdown potentially if you could get the ball to him, or, could Caleb Williams have scrambled? But man, you look back through this play over and over again, and DJ Moore is really not open. There's not a lane for Caleb Williams to throw that ball. He's got pass rushers in his face, in between him and DJ Moore, and the window of trying to hit DJ Moore there is absolutely a far more difficult throw than the one he attempted to Cole Kmet on the play. And even Ben Johnson said, like, Keyshawn Nixon's responsibility on the play was DJ Moore. And Keyshawn Nixon individually made the smart play to abandon his own responsibility to go back to try and get somebody near near Cole Kmet. And had Caleb Williams seen it sooner and thrown it sooner, released the ball sooner, it's a touchdown. It's an easy touchdown. Even when he released it at the point that he did, if you just put it more out in front, more in the corner, let him a little bit more, it's probably still a touchdown. But it's very clearly an underthrown ball. And Ben Johnson admitted it. Caleb Williams admitted it. Like, you got to give him a better pass there. But, like, the play design worked the way it was supposed to. And even with Keyshawn Nixon recognizing it and bailing on DJ Moore and getting back to Cole Kmet, like, Kmet was still open earlier on that play, and honestly open when Caleb Williams let go of the ball. He just didn't put it in the spot. And so that falls on Caleb Williams' shoulders for screwing up the one most important play of the game. The thing is, the other, like, 34 pass attempts he had in the game was much better. Like, this was a really solid Caleb Williams game. This was not like a overall bad performance from Caleb Williams by any means. Like, I know everyone, everyone always looks at the box score, right? And I try and be intentional about, like, hey, let's go deeper than the box score in our conversations here, because of course you see the, 19 of 35 completion percentage is still not as high as you want to see it. It's 54% for all you math majors out there. So, okay, he's still not completing enough passes, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, 76.6 passer rating. But if you dig a little bit deeper into that, he had a season high, and I should have double-checked whether it was a career high, but I suspect it's also a career high. But at a minimum, a season high 7 throwaways, passes where he intentionally throws an incomplete pass to avoid a potentially bigger negative play elsewhere, where he's not necessarily aiming at a receiver. And as I'm talking through this, that is a career high 7 throwaway passes from Caleb Williams in his now short NFL career so far. That's 7 plays where he's not inaccurate. He's not aiming for a receiver. He is intentionally taking an incomplete pass. Like, it's not a reflection of a poor accuracy or poor decision making from Caleb. Nothing's open, or you're under pressure, or you got to get rid of the ball and avoid a sack, avoid a negative play, avoid a turnover, just dirt it, incomplete pass. Then you had, like, your normal inaccurate throws from Caleb Williams. Every game you're getting, when he throws 30, 35 passes, you're getting 5 or 6 inaccurate throws. He had a couple overthrows, including 1 interception, a couple of underthrows, maybe one that was in front of the receiver. 5 or 6 of those, you've been getting those from Caleb Williams just about every game this season. That's like his normal amount, and a pretty normal amount for most above average starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And then you had a dropped pass in there from Colston Loveland. You had a miscommunication with Luther Burden, a couple other plays that were tightly covered but accurate passes that go in there that end up getting separated, the pass breakups that it's a good ball from Caleb but separated by the receivers. And that's kind of all of his incompletions right there. 7 throwaways, a real handful of inaccuracies. Like, those are real misses by Caleb that are his fault for sure. But, like, grand scheme of the game, it's 5 or 6 plays out of 35 pass attempts where he was at fault. Everything else, he was either safely missing or hitting some brilliant throws. And that was one of the differences in this game compared to some previous games. Is like, this had more Caleb magic than the last couple of games. So it was like the same amount of inaccuracies as before, but more positive plays. Makes it a better Caleb Williams performance than some of the ones we've seen in recent weeks. But all we're going to remember and all we're going to talk about is the last interception. And I don't want to downplay that and say that play doesn't matter. Of course, it's hugely important. Of course, you want him to be more accurate, but, like, I just want to sort of apply some context to, like, hey, pretty similar amount of accuracy to all the other games we've seen from Caleb, plus a few more impressive, amazing throws up the right sideline equals a better Caleb Williams performance. That, like, he's not the number one reason why they lost this game. And I don't know if you can really attribute a true number one reason, but I find myself, having gone back through the game now a second time, attributing more of that blame to this Bears defense and feeling like the approach from Dennis Allen, I've been very complimentary of him and empathetic for the tough spots he's been put in, but I didn't like the approach to how they handled Jordan Love. And I feel like that wasn't necessarily the best way they could have gone into this game. So we'll take a look at some of the things that didn't work on defense that maybe they should have seen coming, that maybe we shouldn't be surprised didn't work, or say they should have adjusted in the middle of the game once it wasn't working. That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That certainly was true against the Packers this weekend, and that's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting, because you're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A quarterback gets hot, a defense tightens up, or a momentum flip swings after a turnover, and FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up, and so much more. So right now, Bears-Browns next week have the Bears as 7.5-point home favorites on FanDuel. The money line is Bears minus 430, but as the game goes on, you can jump in those live bets to ride every wave all throughout. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. This Bears defense had a very tough task of trying to slow down a very good Packers offense with Jordan Love playing well, especially this time of year. And so I don't want to flip too harshly on Dennis Allen and the Bears defense. We talked yesterday about how there was a lot of lose-lose situations in how you approach Jordan Love. But when you have when you go back through the game and you can kind of watch how it flowed throughout, it felt like they didn't adjust well enough to what wasn't working in their defensive approach. And that to me is the thing that feels like the biggest disappointment and mistake and correctable issue here, that doesn't feel like the Bears were putting themselves in the best position to be successful against an already difficult matchup, right? Even if you put yourself in the best position, you still might not win, but at least you feel like you made it as hard on them as possible. And I'm not sure they did that to Jordan Love from a game plan standpoint. There's just a few things that stand out here. I think if you just want to talk big picture, if we zoom out a little bit, then we can zoom into some of the minutia here. If we just look at all of the Packers drives when the Packers had the ball, you go back through this game, the Bears really only stopped them about twice, where the Bears did the stopping, not necessarily the Packers stopping themselves, because Green Bay punted 3 times, right? So clearly there were 3 drives that didn't end in points, and then the interception, 4 drives that didn't end in points. So it's not like the Packers could literally do whatever they want in this game, but in terms of moments when the Bears defense actually stopped the Green Bay Packers, because I look at first Packers drive ends in the interception, albeit that they had a sack by Montez Sweat on the play before that got him in a 3rd and 17, but then CJ Gardner-Johnson makes a really nice interception. He just undercuts a route. It's a weird play by Jordan Love. Jordan Love had a great game and was carving up the Bears defense and threw a really inexplicable interception on that first drive. The Bears were sitting in a really standard cover 2 defense. There was no pre-snap disguise. They pretty much showed you that, hey, it's 3rd and long. We're sitting here in cover 2. And Jordan Love tried to force in a deep in-cutting route to, I think it was Christian Watson on that play. CJ Gardner-Johnson had an easy step in front of it and make the pick kind of play. It's credit to him for reading it and attacking it in the air, but it was weird that Jordan Love was so bad on that one play and then really, really good the rest of the game. Because that was one of only, I think, 2 drives where it really feels like the Bears stopped them. That was the first drive of the game for the Packers offense. Then you go second drive of the game for Packers offense. You have a offensive face mask penalty on their left guard, a 15-yard penalty that then put the Packers in 3rd and long, leads them to a punt. And that same drive, you had a diving catch by Musgrave that ended up going to the ground, and was the Bears challenged and turned it over. Essentially a catch the Packers couldn't complete, not because it was good coverage, then a penalty on the Packers that hurt the Packers and forced them into a punt. Not really the Bears defense making a big play. That was the first quarter. Then you go into the second quarter, first drive of the second quarter, Packers drive down the field, score a touchdown. Packers get the ball back after the Bears have a field goal. Packers drive the ball down, deep ball to Bo Melton, touchdown. Back-to-back touchdown drives in that second quarter, and that gets you to halftime. So far in the first half, you have the interception that stopped the Packers, and then the Packers' own penalty forcing themselves to punt. You get into the second half then, and you've got a third and 11 play where Jordan Love underthrows the deep bomb to Bo Melton, and Bo Melton pulls on Deshaun Wright's jersey and gets the offensive pass interference penalty to prevent a pick, but it was bad throw and a penalty on Green Bay leads to a punt where the Packers also hold on that punt, penalties getting in their own way as opposed to really truly, or a bad throw by Jordan Love in that case, really truly stopping the Bears or stopping the Packers themselves, not the Bears defense making a great play. Next drive is the Christian Watson slant route touchdown where he just runs away from everybody for a score. Next drive is there's the deep shot to Romeo Doubs where Nick McLeod makes a nice pass breakup right at the end of the third quarter. There's the second stop from the Bears defense. It was the interception, and it was the Nick McLeod pass breakup where the Bears defense made two stops in the game. But then Green Bay scores again on their next drive when Josh Jacobs punches into the end zone, and then they never touch the ball again till they're kneeling down. There were two drives all game where the Bears defense stopped Green Bay. They were not consistently stopping the Packers in this game, and we're in some ways lucky to hold them to 28 points because two other drives were kind of more stopped by Green Bay. But then on top of that, you look at more minutia into this game. Jordan Love was carving up Dennis Allen's blitzes, and Dennis Allen wasn't doing a very good job of mixing up the coverage in that regard. Over the course of the game, they sat back in a lot of zone against Jordan Love and mixed up the zone coverage pretty nicely, when they were running that 4-man rush. But the vast majority of the times they blitzed in this game, and I don't have the exact number right here in front of me, but 75+% of the time when they were blitzing in this game, it was man coverage behind the blitz. Most of the blitzes came out of cover one. Single deep safety in a zone, everyone else in man coverage, and they're blitzing the quarterback. And he hit 3 touchdowns against it. Just absolutely carved up those blitzes and hit downfield vertical passes against that man coverage on those blitzes. One of the touchdowns was not against man coverage, but he had 3 big plays downfield plus a bunch of other easy completions against the blitz because they're just sitting in man coverage. And he's saying, "Oh, Christian Watson's faster than your guy. Bo Melton's faster than Kevin Byard." You just kind of look around and say, "Hey, he reads the blitz, knows it's coming, and then it's an easy read in the back end because he just knows it's man coverage, right?" And it's not to say that, if the Bears had done only zone blitzes, would they have beaten the Green Bay Packers? I'm not here to say that, but it sure feels like it was pretty easy on Jordan Love to say, blitz, man coverage, vast majority of the time here, speedy receiver, get the ball out to him. Credit to Jordan Love for making those plays, but the blitzes also weren't working. At some point, you kind of got to say, hey, this isn't working. Not only the coverage is on the back end, but the Bears were getting more pressure, a higher rate of their non-blitzing plays pressured the quarterback than their blitzing plays. They're only 3 out of their 12 blitzing plays. Let me pull up the exact number here while I'm talking. When it comes to the pressure actually getting after the quarterback, they blitzed him 12 times. They got pressure on 3 of their 12 blitz attempts, actually moved Jordan Love. When they didn't blitz, it was 14 plays and they got pressure on 6. So almost half of their 4-man rushes got pressure on the quarterback, and a quarter of their blitzes got pressure on the quarterback. Part of that was he was throwing the ball more quickly against the blitz, getting rid of it quickly, but that was okay because he had man coverage, so he would get rid of it quickly, and then the receiver would make plays after the catch because the Bears had one-on-one coverage on that player, and then they weren't able to stop them with that one-on-one coverage. So it just sort of was not putting the defense consistently in the best position to succeed. It says something to me that the only sack of the game was non-blitz play, 4-man rush, Montez Sweat sacks Jordan Love. The only interception of the game, 4-man rush, non-blitz play. CJ Gardner-Johnson makes the play. In a weird way, we don't trust the Bears 4-man rush, but they were having more success with it than man coverage blitzes over and over again. Mix in some zone blitzes, maybe blitz a little bit less. He's killing your blitz all game, and it didn't happen. And they just felt content to just say, all right, we're having Nick McLeod and CJ Gardner-Johnson and Deshaun Wright cover the Packers wide receivers one-on-one with a deep safety in the middle of the field, but Byard and Brisker weren't catching up to these Packers receivers very well. Certainly Byard wasn't taking some good angles and looked old and slow too often in this game. And I just came away a lot more disappointed with this Bears defense. Not to say that I have the magical formula that would have won them the game, but just to feel like, hey, what you were doing wasn't working and you didn't really switch it up all that much, and would have liked to see a different approach to try and just make life a little bit more difficult on Jordan Love, who really was stopped by himself and his own team just as often as he was stopped by the Bears defense in this game. And there's one other thing that's been bugging me about the Bears approach that's not specific to this Packers game, but we saw it in this Packers game. And it's when it comes to injuries, not just Kyler Gordon coming up with a groin injury in pregame warmups, but also how they've handled the return of Jalen Johnson, TJ Edwards, and Noah Sewell, and a bunch of other injuries that we're getting enough of these that I have some questions that I'd like to explore about whether or not the Bears are handling injuries or mishandling injuries right now. That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Mint Mobile. You know, there's no reason to let big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. Right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock in 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it the full Scrooge treatment. And what makes this even better is how simple Mint makes the switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. Switching to Mint lets you keep your same great coverage for a lower price, and setup takes only a few minutes. You can bring your own phone and keep your own number without any issues. So turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint Unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months plan required, $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees, initial plan term only. Greater than 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com. I am not a doctor and will never claim to know how exactly a team is supposed to handle injuries. But I look at what's been happening with some of the Bears injuries, and I'm noticing a concerning pattern that makes me question whether they're taking the right approaches to how they're handling player injuries and returning from said injuries, and maybe how they're handling things at practice, to be honest with you, because it's been slowly sort of building up over the course of the year. And this is not just like, are the Bears more hurt than other teams question? That to me is not as interesting here as like when and where and how these injuries are popping up and some of the ways that they've approached them that has yielded some funky results that we're not used to. So, right, I think what starts this is the Kyler Gordon conversation, right? Like tweaks his groin during pregame warmups, can't go out there. And maybe, that's a soft tissue thing where if he's recovering and kind of dealing with one nagging injury, sometimes you overcompensate with other muscles, and then that's how you tweak those muscles. And like, again, in a vacuum, one Kyler Gordon tweak during a warmup, okay, nothing to be suspicious about there. Like that stuff happens. It's bad luck, sucks, whatever, but you can kind of get by with that. But then you start to add to that conversation here. Like Rome Odunze finishes the game last week against the Eagles seemingly fine. He didn't leave the field with some injury on a play where he's like down and helped off the field, like played through the Eagles game, and all of a sudden pops up on the injury report with not only just having a foot injury, but apparently has had a stress fracture in his foot, and now he misses the Packers game all of a sudden after playing fully through all the previous games. And yes, he's been on the injury report at times, and like maybe he hasn't looked 100%, but like point being, have they handled that properly? Maybe they've done everything in the best way they know how, and sometimes bodies are weird and heal funky, and that just is how the way the cookie crumbles. But okay, adding it to the list of like, okay, maybe alone, not a big deal, but as we start to build a little bit of a case here, let's keep that in mind. You also have in this game Jalen Johnson starts, plays outside cornerback, second game back from injury. Played against the Eagles. That was his first game back. It's going to take him some time, whatever, to kind of get reacclimated. But now, a full week of practice, second game back, good to go. Plays about half of the snaps in the game, a little over half of the snaps. He's split in time 50-50 almost with Nick McLeod at the other outside cornerback. And it's like, okay, is the guy healthy enough to play? Or is he playing at 60% out there? Because he doesn't look sharp. He doesn't look like Jalen Johnson. He looks a step slow. He looks less aggressive, less, locked in, dialed in, fired up, and juiced up. He looks like a guy who's kind of struggling through an injury right now. And so it's like, should he be out there? Do you want Jalen Johnson at 60%? And if that was the only one, okay, maybe not a big deal. But we see the same thing from TJ Edwards. Plays about half of the snaps in this game. Splitting snaps at linebacker with Eamon Onbagbamiga. And Noah Sewell comes back for this game and plays one snap on defense. But, plays a little bit more on special teams, but hardly plays out there. Are these guys healthy and ready to play and give it your all? Or are you getting 60% of them at which is below the quality and the standard that you're used to? And are you hurting your team by having these guys out there at half health, also potentially, in theory, risking further injury if they're not 100% healthy, but they're out there playing and struggling while doing so, on top of Kyler Gordon tweaking his groin in warmups, on top of Rome Odunze's foot injury all of a sudden becoming way more serious, on top of another weird thing this season. We saw earlier, this is stuff earlier in the year, Krana Magaji, not play, inactive on game days, and somehow at practice, injured, goes on injured reserve. Okay, one player getting a practice injury, going to injured reserve, not that weird. But then Braxton Jones gets benched. He's the backup. All of a sudden, goes on injured reserve randomly after hardly playing. We was doing a little bit of special teams, but not playing in games. The Bears have 3 players right now on injured reserve who were on the practice squad, got injured, and went on injured reserve. Guys who didn't play any regular season snaps. So you got 5 guys here that seem to have gotten injured enough seriously, not playing in a regular game on the field, to go on injured reserve. And so I add that to Kyler Gordon tweaking his groin, Rome Odunze's foot thing getting worse all of a sudden, and Jalen Johnson and TJ Edwards and Noah Sewell activated, back on the 53-man roster, taking an active game day spot and playing half of the game or less and looking at less than 100%. And all of that adds up to saying, are the Bears handling these injuries correctly? Is there a mismanagement of injuries happening right now? Any of those individually, not a big deal. Collectively, I got questions. And I'm not here to definitively say they're screwing this up and they should fire the doctor and the training staff or whatever. I don't even know exactly who's the scapegoat there, but it just feels like something's up there. Something's off there. And it's making Dennis Allen's job more difficult. And it's making Ben Johnson's job more difficult. And it feels like it's, I don't want to say endangering the players, because I don't know that we can say that definitively, right? But it doesn't feel like it's what's best for the players. And it doesn't feel like it's what's best for the Bears. And maybe these well-trained medical professionals who are expert in their fields actually know what they're doing and know a lot better than I do, and certainly have a lot more information. So again, I'm not here to definitively say they're screwing this up and they're doing it wrong. But I do think there's enough stuff here that seems weird that I think it's worth keeping an eye on and raising some attention to as the season goes on. Certainly, we're always watching Bears injuries closely here in the Locked On Bears podcast. So that's why you got to hit the subscribe button so you make sure you're keeping up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're hoping to get you excited about Locked On Bears in your Spotify Wrapped, for example. If you can prove it on social media, send us a screenshot of Locked On Bears in your Spotify Wrapped for the year as one of your top podcasts. Then we're going to give you a free month of our brand new Locked On Everydayers Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social media platform, and we'll drop you a code. You can be one of the first to join the Locked On Bears Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free, along with exclusive access to a members-only Discord channel. So be sure, if you're in your Spotify Wrapped, to share that. And thank you for listening to us enough to make you a part of the Spotify Wrapped. And even if we're not in your Spotify Wrapped, but you want to join the Everydayers Club, you can always check us out over on the Locked On Podcast Network social media, or you can find the Everydayers Club for Locked On Bears at lockedonbears.supercast.com to get the ad-free experience, plus the Locked On Bears Discord. Before you know it, we'll be turning our attention to the Cleveland Browns, who have some major injuries of their own. We'll have Crossover Thursday coming up here real soon this week on the podcast, and along the way, we'll make sure that every time you tune into Locked On Bears, you're left with another opportunity to bear down.